Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, February 20th, 2021. And our top story this week, virtual disaster, the impact of COVID on our educational system. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Dr. Ronald Cantor. He's a learning and development consultant. Ron, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm really proud to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And, you know, this topic of education and virtual education couldn't be more timely. There's a lot of talk out there about getting our children out of the homes for education and back in the schools. But I wanted to seek out your perspective on this. So give it to us straight and to the point. How are you what are you seeing in terms of successes and maybe some areas for improvement in terms of this virtual learning?
Well, that's very interesting because if you think about it, it's really been a virtual disaster. I mean, so much of what's happened has taken the notion of schooling and turned it on its head. I mean, if you think about what schools offer kids that they can't get through virtual, it's the socialization, it's the sports, it's the opportunity to interact with teachers informally, and all that's kind of gone away. Then add to that, why do we have the absolute requirement to return kids to school? On one hand, you have the educational imperative. On the other, you have the economic imperative. You can't have a good, affluent life in the United States without both parents working. And school fills the gap of childcare that really doesn't exist otherwise in our society. So, I mean, what's interesting about all this is that there are actually, I think, some positives that have come out of this. I mean, even if you think about virtual disaster, virtual is not real. So it isn't a real disaster. It's an opportunity, I think, to move in a direction that's more interconnected, more leveraged on resources that are beyond the walls of the school. And if you think about it, one of the things we'll be left with when this pandemic is beaten, and it will be beaten ultimately with vaccines, what we're going to be left with is many, many more students connected to the internet, many more opportunities to extend the nature of education in ways which were only available, frankly, to the affluent beforehand. So my sense of it is, yes, it's a sort of a desperate situation, but largely it's because we are measuring the wrong things in terms of education. I mean, the educational system overall is in a state of what I would call hysterical panic about this because their whole business model has been turned on its head. My daughter, who attends a private liberal arts college that costs $75,000 a year, in a subject topic where that whole industry is shut down. So is it logical now? No. Was it logical before? Maybe not either, because if you think about it, there's such a misalignment between what kids are studying through the K-12 years and then into university, and then what relevance does that have to the world of work? Unfortunately, if you don't have a STEM or a STEAM background, maybe no relation whatsoever, and you end up becoming a low-paid service worker. So overall, I think there are issues, Jeff, that have to be resolved in the educational system, and its misalignment, its lack of contemporary topics to learn and skills that make people successful in the workplace. But this has revealed a lot of those problems. And I think that in some ways, there's no going back to the way it was before, as much as, shall we say, non-creative school administrators would want it to be. I mean, one last point on this. What do we measure in terms of student accomplishment? And the answer is a lot of it is decontextualized garbage, stuff that they're never going to use in their lives, things they don't really care about, but they're doing only because they have to. What about the skills necessary to be successful in an interconnected world we're living in now? We don't even measure that. We don't measure the success in using technology to get connected or put up assignments or use the system effectively. It's not even being measured, and yet that's what's necessary to be successful. It's an irony that everybody can see right now, and frankly, I think is going to lead to significant change in the future, but not immediately. What we're moving to is a gradual recognition of the fact that the overall educational system, which may work for some, but overall, I don't think it's fulfilling its mission. I don't think it's fulfilling its mission for society. And I think this has revealed that in spades.
Ron, you make some really great points, and I think there's a lot of people out there who are nodding, I would think, nodding their heads up and down. And you work with a lot of boards of education. You're on some boards here in North Carolina.
Yeah, the North Carolina Virtual Academy here, which is a wholly virtual.
You work with many people
K-12.
Across this great country and across the world. What are the steps that you might recommend to go from where we are today, what I would call point A, and get us to point Z, which is more openness, more access, a curriculum or curricula, whatever the proper grammar is, that is really appropriate for our next generation of leaders and workers?
Well, boy, that's a big question, Jeff, and probably we should have further dialogue to get at each of those topics. But I was in China in Beijing in 2018 for the Global Education Technology Summit. And I was very impressed by the way the Chinese were already using artificial intelligence and even augmented reality on the university side to teach engineering and other topics, which we're hardly even touching in this country. On the K-12 side, the thing that they recognized is distance learning was essential because the regional distant cities outside of Shenzhen, Beijing, and Shanghai, they didn't have very good educational resources. So their plan was to make it more equitable by using the same distance learning technologies we're using here in the US. But the difference is, instead of focusing on the content and treating the students as a sort of like tabula rasas that could be written on with content, they focused on the emotional state of the students. And so they're using artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and various other algorithms to understand the state of emotions and psychology of the students who are at a distance. And then they're providing their teachers with feedback to know how to improve their approach to teaching them. We have nothing close to that here. And actually, I would be very interested, hopefully now, maybe it'll be possible because it was impossible for the last 4 years, to re-engage the Chinese to see how they've moved forward with their systems. Companies like Tal, Dow, and others, EDU in China, are all really pushing the envelope in ways that would help us here to improve the quality of our education. Don't get me wrong. It's not as if they don't insist on curriculum. They already have a textbook that's been nationally developed that every college student in China has to take on the use of AI. We have nothing comparable here in this country. And one of the reasons is the same reason we have the problem now with pandemic-induced virtual learning, and that is if there are 2,500 school districts, there are 2,500 solutions. And as you know, and as the audience knows, variance is the enemy of efficiency and effectiveness. And right now, we went from having nobody knew what to do to now 2,000 experts who everybody knows what to do, but they're all doing different things. And part of the reason they're all doing different things is because this quality of the Department of Education's ability to give standards to deal with this situation has been, frankly, vapid. Now that may change, but to this point, it's everyone for themselves, basically. And that is not the best formula for, shall we say, societal success. It may work really well for affluents, people who have enough money to develop and bring in their own experts to help them develop pods for learning and things of this sort. But for the general person, family in the United States, I mean, it's been a horror for them in many ways. And let me give you one example. There's this new role that's emerged in all this called the learning coach. Really, it's another way of saying a parent or someone who sits next to a K through 3-year-old and basically helps them to do the work. Actually, what we found is they do a lot of the work. You can't fairly test now because the learning coach is sitting next to them, giving them the answers. What's most significant about this and worth considering is there needs to be family education. There needs to be ways by which we can uplift family life, especially during the time of pandemic, especially when there's so much edgy mental illness out there right now with people who are isolated and are not used to that. And that is a valuable opportunity that we've been given to help the family. Instead, most of the time, there's a fear of teachers of telling family what to do. It has to come from a higher level in the school district. And honestly, it's like you don't want to trot on people's private stuff. But one last thing, look at my background. You can tell a lot about me by looking at my background. And one of the things about Zoom, which is very interesting, is it provides an intimate view into people's lives that normally doesn't exist. And it really can be a very, very powerful tool for project-based learning, for various kinds of interactions between students before they come before the teacher. And that's why I'm working on a concept with some of my former colleagues at Accenture called the Group Learning Assessment Platform, which posits that we should use this environment as a way to bring large numbers of people together, kids with parents watching, to show what they've learned, to do a live gamified event that will provide students and teachers a chance to exhibit what they've learned for parents and to get a nice community thing going, because that seems to me a lot what's missing right now. Instead, we find parents are learning coaches, meaning they're the ones who have to flog the kids to do the work, and teachers have become assigners in chief. They give them assignments and then they clock the assignments back in, but as far as how much teaching is going on, right. Virtual learning is a double-edged sword. Is there learning really going on? We have no way to know at this point because our standardized tests really aren't applicable, and they're not. And the state here in North Carolina is afraid to allow students to take those tests because it'll show how much they've fallen behind. So they're not even taking the tests at this point. There's a lot of interesting opportunities and challenges, and I don't think they're bad. I think they're actually good because we were stuck in a pattern of school which probably wasn't working beforehand anyway. Yeah.
Well, Ron, there's so much that you delivered through our conversation today, and we look forward to having you back again. We're going to make this into a regular monthly series, if not with greater frequency. Ron Kantor, Dr. Ron Kantor, always a pleasure chatting with you,
sir.
And we look forward to having you back on the program very soon.
Jeff, you're filling a very, very important void right now in terms of education for people across this country who nearly need it, those of us who are retiring. So I just want to thank you very much for all of your hard work to make this network, a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Bye for now.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate co-pays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month. Look, with the uncertainty of the virus and vaccines, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Here's the bottom line. Call to get significant benefits at no additional cost and see if your zip code has coverage with the Give Back benefit. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-924-3920. That's 1-800-924-3920.
Welcome back. On Friday, I sat down with Sandy Sale. She's Chief Experience Officer for Hills of Africa to discuss Africa travel. Let's take a look.
I started the business about 21 years ago, just shy of 21 years ago. And it really happened because I said to my husband, I really would love to go back and live in Zimbabwe. And he was like, there is not a chance. We are not going back to Zimbabwe. So I thought to myself, how am I going to pretend that I'm living in Africa every single day? And so Hills of Africa was born, and very, very lucky to be working with people who want to go to Africa, and I get to pretend I'm there every day. So yeah, we've been in business 21 years, and we are a boutique company, very customer service based. And what I love about working for Hills of Africa and doing what I do is I get to really get to know my clients and understand their desires and dreams. I get to learn about their hobbies and what they like and what they don't like. And then we customize and tailor an itinerary to Africa based upon what they really want. So absolutely love what I do and grateful every day to be doing this. You know, it's funny, when clients come to me, they come to me saying, I want to go and see rhino and elephant and lion. And then we get talking a little bit more, and I encourage them to maybe do some kind of culture or meeting the local people. And when they come back, I ask them, okay, so how was it? You know, what was the best part? And they say, we absolutely loved the animals and the safari experience, but it was the people that really got to us and made us get all goosebumpy and really affected them. So I think that's the number one thing, is the people. So, you know, there are different areas. Obviously, I love getting to meet the local people and getting our clients interacting with them. For example, in Cape Town, there's a really great organization called Utando, which means love in the local language. And you get to meet entrepreneurs who in kind of previous lives were really good at growing vegetables, and they've been given the entrepreneur skills, and now they're selling their vegetables to the top hotels in Cape Town. So you get to experience that kind of thing, or you get to go and have a meal in a family's house. Kenya is fantastic for the Samburu and Maasai tribes, all the beautiful colors, the oranges and the yellows. So you can get involved and go and meet them. And maybe if you get lucky, you get invited to a Samburu wedding. So there's lots of opportunities with that. I love going to a local's home. And for example, in Cape Town, you can go to a Malay house and you can learn how to make Cape Malay cuisine and be part of their family for the evening. So many opportunities to meet people. And that is something I really encourage our travelers to do, because getting to know the local people, you get to experience something different. You get to see how other people live, and you can come home and make a difference to other people. But for example, some clients only have 10 days, some have 20 days. So doing something where you're going to see the whole of the areas that we operate in for 10 days is really not feasible, because you're just going to be on an aircraft the entire time. So I like to concentrate on a specific region, for example, Southern Africa, where you can do Cape Town and the people and the beautiful scenery and really great food. You can do the Winelands, which is 45 minutes from Cape Town. Then you could go to Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, and you'd fly direct. It's becoming much easier, actually. A lot more flights are direct. So Cape Town to Victoria Falls is a 2-hour flight. See the Victoria Falls, do a walk, see the elephants, just, be on the Zambezi River with great sunset cruises, and then go off to safari. I like to end with wow, and safari always kind of ticks that wow list. And then again, you'd fly there. Or if you're going to do, for example, you want to do gorillas and safari, I'd concentrate more on doing Uganda or Rwanda and combining with the Masai Mara, where you can get a direct flight from the gorillas to your safari destination. So trying to avoid those long layovers and unnecessary mandatory nights is really important to me, because then you get to experience it properly. I mean, you have clients who come to you and say, this is a trip of a lifetime, I'm never going back to Africa, so you got to make it special for me. First thing they do when they come back is like, oh, we want to go back again and we want to do something different. So yeah, I've had one client who, exact same story, came to me sort of 15 years ago, and she goes every 2 years now to Africa. So I think you get hooked. Important for us going into other areas, or going into an animals area, we're going into their environment. So we need to respect their rules and regulations. So I generally get a private guide in each different area. Or when they're on safari, they don't necessarily need a private guide, but using the camp's guides and just enjoying and learning. And one of my big tips is, I'm a bit shy, but I try very hard to get out there and ask questions, because the more questions I can ask about my guide, the more I learn about his home, his lifestyle, and his beautiful area that he's working in. So I'm a big believer in using a guide in your destination.
And this week, I also spoke with Groom Law Group's Kevin Walsh about a new investment advice exemption rule released by the Department of Labor. Let's take a look.
So the big news this week is that the Biden administration, the new Department of Labor, they have decided to allow the investment advice exemption that was finalized during the Trump administration take effect as scheduled on February 16th, 2021. And I and others, and maybe not you, Jeff, were very surprised that, the Team Biden, was able to quickly look at the Trump rule and say, we support this Trump rule. We're going to let it go forward. And some of the causes for surprise were, on day one, Team Biden released a memo saying delay all rules by 60 days. We're still inside 60 days. But, it seems like this is the type of thing where, it adds investor protections. So Team Biden was able to look at it and say, this is a good thing. The new exemption, it allows for, brokers, financial advisors, and, insurance agents and others to make recommendations to retirement plans, to individuals in plans to roll out of a retirement plan, and to individuals with IRAs. And if they meet certain conditions, so they've got to satisfy impartial conduct standards, which require, for example, that the recommender not place his or her interests ahead of the retirement saver. If you meet certain disclosure requirements, if you acknowledge fiduciary status, if you do kind of a whole host of things, then you're allowed to be paid for your recommendation, notwithstanding the fact that you're a fiduciary in making the recommendation. So what it does is it basically provides a way for, professional advice services to continue, or for professional advice services to be delivered to retirement savers, because, in the absence of an exemption, if someone is a fiduciary and they're getting paid based on the advice they're giving, then, ERISA says that's problematic. So this is a big deal because it provides a pathway to providing advice while being paid. In the release where they said they were going to allow the rule to go forward, the Biden administration said, we do plan on providing some color on this through, maybe FAQs to, put their spin on the regulatory text that was finalized by the Trump administration. And even beyond that, if it turns out that this isn't getting the results that the Biden administration wants, if retirement savers aren't getting high quality advice, you could see changes being made to other related rules. This rule was designed to harmonize pretty closely with what we saw out of the SEC last year, or almost 2 years ago now, with regulation best interest. So really, I think Team Biden is taking a wait and see approach to see if these regulatory reforms that were designed to heighten the standard of care around retail advice work before possibly making changes of their own.
Well, that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Well, we're back again tomorrow for BRN Sunday. That's our news and analysis show. I'll be joined by members of the media, financial services, and academia. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.